Well, good morning, listeners. This is Cheri. I'm the owner of Collegiate Sports Advocate and better known as CSA. I have an amazing guest today, not only a friend, but an amazing father, husband, and softball guru to all. We have Jonathan Gandert today, and we're going to be discussing here on February 8th, 2023, raising student athletes. So, good morning, Jonathan. Tell us all about yourself.
Good morning, Cheri. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure, talking with you and knowing you over the years. I got three daughters. Jaden Gandert, she plays with her sister in Northern Colorado at Division I. They're middle infielders. We got one left at home, Jaylee Gandert. She's a junior in high school. Been with my wife for 30 years. So we know each other quite well. We're best of friends. That's a little bit about the family side of things. On the business side of things, I've owned my own business for about 12 years, which has allowed me to travel and coach and raise my kids and help with other people's kids along the journey. So that's been pretty important to me and my family to allow us to really get in depth with raising, our kids and others' kids.
That's incredible, Jonathan. I'd love for you to add in here some of the organizational connections that you have and some of the titles that you wear in the state of New Mexico.
Sure. So at the 10U level, we played in a tournament down in Las Cruces. My daughter was 21 now. She was 10 then. The commissioner, the USA Commissioner of New Mexico, had seen how well disciplined and organized our team was and how far along they came along in 6 months from not winning the game to winning every tournament in about 6 months. So she had pulled me to the side and asked me if I wanted to be the JO Commissioner of New Mexico for USA Softball, and I had no idea what that was. But she was impressed with, the discipline that we had on our team at such a young age that she was getting ready to retire after 20-something years. And so I'm the JO Commissioner of USA Softball of New Mexico. I've been through about 3 different commissioners in the last 9 to 10 years in that position. And then I'm also the head of the New Mexico Suncats Organization here in New Mexico, and also the Powerhouse Mechanics Director of pitching as well.
That's incredible. And may I add, you do it all quite well. And I think 2 words or one word you said twice here, I'm stumbling on my words today, is the word discipline. So what are the key principles of parenting that has helped you succeed with not only your own 3 children, but the other student athletes that you've been involved with?
Well, I think the key thing is just work ethic. I was raised, on a cattle ranch with my grandparents. They had 14 kids. My mom was one of the youngest of the 14. So I got the best of both worlds of, what discipline was and calloused hands were, and what that meant to have calloused hands that brought, discipline and awareness of what every hour and every minute meant in the day, and what it meant to sit down at the table and enjoy a good meal without complaining about it.
Isn't that a new world? So how do you transition that to today's student athletes and the environment that I've raised them in this environment too, right? How do you transition that without the hard, calloused hands that these student athletes aren't used to?
Well, I was fortunate enough when I moved back to New Mexico after 13 years. I raised my 3 daughters on a small farm south of Albuquerque, and I had a group of 10 kids that I coached for 7 years since they were 8, 9 years old. And we had no pitching coaches, no hitting coaches. We just did a lot of just keeping it simple. Just the simple drills, the simple stuff. I set up some drills at the National Guard Armory that we had access to. So it was just basically letting the kids play, let them play outside, introduce them to different stuff outside of whatever sport they're playing, and just let them play outside.
That's a powerful philosophy in today's world, right? Are there other tips that you've seen that you could, attribute to the success of your three daughters or your organizations?
Just finding activities outside of the game. One example is, I raised my daughters back to the small farm with animals, observing animals, how they relate, how the interaction happens, the schedule, the feeding times, the birthing, the death, all that stuff translates to life. So I used to take my teams, to the sale barn where they would, sell the animals for processing. I even assigned some kids to have animals at home so they can learn the process of discipline within life in general, what it takes to raise something, and then what it takes to put that on the table later on, to keep food in the refrigerator.
That's incredible. Other tips. I know you and I have known each other long enough that I've seen some of them, but you
Mhm.
really make great awareness to the student athlete about their responsibilities in life. You shared a sample with me the other day about, changing a tire or putting the oil in the car or putting the gas in the tank. Give me some of those anecdotes that you've shared along the way.
Sure. So every year when we're out at a big national tournament, I'll find the right opportunity to sit our kids down, and we don't have much turnover rate on our roster. But I asked the same question to each one of them. At what point in your life did you come to an obstacle where you had no help, no cell phone to call anybody, nothing, no help whatsoever? And these are young girls, from 15 to 18 years old. And it's very interesting to hear their story when they had no help. To being on the side of the road, changing a tire, they had no help. They had to figure it out. To being home alone and somebody knocked on the door, they had no help. So it's those hurdles in life that they got to get used to, not having any help and having to figure it out on their own.
So, how do you translate that to what they're experiencing on the softball fields or in the recruiting process?
So translating to the softball field, when I get a new athlete, the first thing I ask them beyond skill is, what do you do to help at home? How do you do your dishes, in the sink or in the dishwasher? If they say, well, I don't have time to do dishes, well, that's kind of a red flag for us. um, do you pump your own gas? Do you know how to go get groceries? And if they don't, I assign them assignments to, hey, mom, dad, give them $100 and they need to go shop for 65 items. And if they can't do that, they can't play on this team. So it's a lot of that self ownership that we need to drive these kids into life and into the real world. And translating that to the softball field, the first thing we do is we get rid of the bands and numbers, because calling plays. We want these girls to be independent. One of the big key words that every kid that plays for me is read your book. They look at the game, they read their book. The game knows way more than us, so the game tells them what to do. They read their book, and then they have two or three choices, and they try to execute that.
Those are great. I had another mom talking to me the other day. She said, "Things I forgot to teach my freshmen in college." She goes, "You know what happens when they need a medicine and they have to go to CVS?" She goes, "I think I forgot to teach them those things." Or like in my story had always been, I forgot to teach my children how to use a calendar, right? And so, other tips that you've had similar to this that maybe you've learned through your two that are in college now, if you had to do it again, what would you do differently?
What would I would do differently? You know, I would learn when to shut it down a little sooner. After the game, on the way home. Um, my oldest daughter's taking sports psychology right now. She's a senior, and I've been in class with her. This last year on the sports psychology, and I asked her, please involve me in that because I want to be better. As a coach and as a mentor and as a person. And one thing that she had brought up is, Dad, um, there's more to me than just the game. There's more to me than just being proud of me of being a great athlete. There's more to me besides having great stats. I'm a person outside the game, and being involved in the way they were raised. we love them dearly, but I wish I would have gave them a few more hugs when they were younger. Appreciated them.
Oh, that's amazing and very touching, and I think very insightful to what she was saying about what she's learning there, because I do think as just people in sports or people in whatever obsession we're involved in, we forget that we need to incorporate them as humans. So I think that's the human touch and just the kindness, or just going to have an ice cream. Those are awesome. Any other tips of what you would tell the parents today besides, giving them an extra hug or allowing them to shut down? This is powerful insight, and I'd love for you to share.
Yeah, I will let them know to release them, let them grow, you know, beyond, 15, 16 years old. Don't be so overbearing. Don't be so controlling. Um, let them figure out their own situations. They're going to have to do it at some point, and might as well let them do it under your watch instead of somebody else's watch when they get to college, because it don't matter what a great athlete they are, what a big scholarship they get. Once they get there, when other people's kids that were raised independently, knowing how to do laundry and do all that stuff, it's going to be a hurdle and a burden for them, no matter how great they were athletically or academically, to find the avenue and the road to do the simple things in life, because they're going to lean on other students, and those students are going to get tired of them leaning on them, and they're going to go through a hard time within themselves trying to figure out those little things in life.
Yeah, I think we should make a list, a laundry list, right? Learn to do dishes, learn to do household chores. And I think we get away from that because we're just so active and busy. We just, by the sake of staying sane, we just do some of those things ourselves. Are there other tips you would give parents? I know we felt overly restrictive, like we didn't teach them some of the ways and the terrible things that could happen out there. Are today's parents too lenient? Like, I kind of call them permissive parenting is the downfall of their future. Speak to me on that one.
Yeah, sometimes we all love our kids, and love is blind. Sometimes, we love our kids dearly, and sometimes all that love kind of camouflages, their faults, um, and our faults as parents too, because we can't step out of that realm of the love for your child, to where you got to be the disciplinarian, not just, I'm going to love you now and then you might, not like me later. I'd rather you not like me now and love me later, based on the tools that, I've given you, that I'm going to give you to prepare you for life. So it's a balance. It's a balance there of, we work very hard as parents, to be better, than we were, but we want the same for our kids. We don't want to spoil them too much and give them everything that they need, that they don't understand the calloused hands that it took to get there.
That's insightful. One of the things we've always said is, we felt too protective, but then we see a lot of people being too lenient, and then their kids are not prepared for the dangers, spoiling them and then handicapping them from, life's abilities to overcome. I always said speed bumps and climb mountains. Are there any other things that you've said, hey, I wish I was a little softer in this category, or a little harder, or a little tougher in a certain area?
Well, as a young father, well, 23, I was 23 when my oldest was born, me and my wife. And one thing that I had told her, and I was like, hey, you know what? When, how do we do this? Like, we don't, there's not a book that you learn how to be, a dad or a mother.
Hmm.
So when my oldest one, Jaden, when she would fall or cry, and I had seen my wife running over to pick her up, I was like, whoa, let's not pick her up. Let's let her pick herself up, and then we'll give her a hug and, embrace her. So we implemented that like since day one. I noticed that. So with all our kids, if they fell, where they were 1 year old or 2 year old, they just fell on their butt and they started crying, we didn't pick them up until they picked themselves up.
That's a great, great lesson, because I had one of those too. Our son was playing t-ball and he fell down and he was rubbing his knees, and I was running up, and my husband looked at me and said, "Sit down. He can." brush off his own dirty knees. And I was like, oh, no, he can't, not without me, So I get that need to go help them and get them through those tough times. But I think as parents, we just do that naturally because we want to protect them or put bubble wrap around them or, be cautious. Like, we were very against partying and spending the night at people's houses. And then, you have to teach them about the peer pressure when they get to college. Have your kids experienced the pressures of going to college and being tempted or taunted for either not doing those college-like things or involving themselves and having to learn the hard way?
Yeah, again, back to my oldest one, we learned a lot through her.
Mhm.
She, she was just so busy working and growing up and working the farm and being, involved in, athletics, she led her in 4 sports in high school. So she was very busy, 19-hour days since she was 10. Same with the other ones. But when she got to college, her freshman year, in high school, she didn't go out much. She didn't go to, any gatherings or stuff.
Well, we're back with Jonathan, and I guess we're going to test my technological skills here, Jonathan. We've never been cut off before, so hopefully I've merged this correctly. But we were in the middle of talking about some of the challenges that your oldest daughter has had, the 19-hour work days, and, just from the age 10 until college. And you were going to share what that taught her when she got to college.
Yes. So when she got to college, um, she experienced, time, of course, away from us, away from the sport, away from the classroom. And when she realized, you know, all the dangers and the looseness of all these kids being away from home and being independent young adults, she took on the role of a mother role. And they even called her mom. The softball girls and the baseball boys, they all hung out. So, she was busy taking care of everybody as a freshman, giving rides here, after, get-togethers, making sure everybody got home safe, making sure everybody was treating each other correctly, at these, get-togethers, through the night. So we didn't realize how much, quote unquote, babysitting she was doing and how much pressure that was doing on her, and was on her. But that's part of the regrets as parents, that we wish we would have let her maybe toned her schedule down. Not that we didn't let her get out in high school, it's just she was so busy. So she can balance that type of life when she got to that point, instead of worrying about everybody, is pretty hard and stressful for a young girl.
Yeah, and in return, you probably felt proud that she had the life skills and that you guys had taught her all those things because we had a similar one too. My kids used to make fun of the fact I was not much of a cook. I didn't enjoy cooking. It's not that I couldn't, but it was much easier to go get food for my family. And when they got to college, they're like, hey, because when I did cook, I showed them how to cook. We make enchiladas, we make tamales, we do all of those big, huge type of things. And they were impressed, by their roommates that they could cook and take care of themselves and do laundry and things like that. So, like you said earlier, like me now, but love me later. Those were the life skills that you taught her being the oldest. And that was one life lesson that my mother had said to us is even though you intend to try to treat each kid, each student athlete equally, they all are different individuals too, and they'll take on different roles. So they need different parenting. Did you find different parenting uh, things that you did with the second and
You know what? The middle one was so close. Well, I wouldn't say close in age. She was about 2.5, close to 3 years difference from the oldest. But she was involved almost, exactly in everything we did with the older one. So she was right there with her. The difference that we see with the younger one, is, we're older and wiser, and we actually get to, sit down and enjoy her conversation when she gets home. Where before we were too busy pumping information and raising them, to with the younger one now, we still sit at the table, we eat together, which is very important as much as we can. and we get to listen to her instead of her listen to us.
I love that. That is one of the best tips I heard today. So, in summary, can you roll through, the list of tips that you'd like to roll out, to our audience here today as, your key learnings?
Yeah, so I think, the three words that come to mind is, be firm, be fair, and be consistent in what you do.
Oh, those
And
are powerful. Hmm.
simple as that. Be
Yeah,
firm, fair, and consistent.
fabulous, and I love it. And I'm going to wrap it up, Jonathan, because this is amazing, and I hope that our audience, when we put this out on social media, will engage and share their tips too. Because I think, as you do with your own children, we all learn from each other, and we, strive to hashtag be better, right? One of my favorite lines, and to be able to pass it on to the next group. So, as always, I appreciate our years of friendship and the business that we've done together and continue to do together. And I think like-minded people tend to stick together and stay together. And we hope to make our crew of friends even bigger through these podcasts. So, Jonathan Gandert, New Mexico Suncats, and many, many other titles, thank you today. And we'll be on to sending it out to social media.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time, Cheri. Really
All
appreciate you.
right. Have a great day.
You too.